The first time Alex saw her, she wasn't behind a shining desk or surrounded by board members. She was on the ground, trembling, soaked in rain, her designer coat torn, her ankle twisted. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible through the storm. "Don't hurt me. I can't walk." Alex froze, umbrella shaking in his hand. He had just finished his night shift at the construction site, on his way home to his sleeping daughter, Emma. He wasn't expecting to find a woman like her on the roadside, a woman who looked like she belonged in magazines, not in a dark alley at midnight. "I'm not going to hurt you," Alex said softly, kneeling beside her. "You're safe now." She flinched when he tried to touch her arm. He noticed the bruises on her wrist, the blood on her sleeve. Whoever had done this, they weren't strangers. They knew her. I just need to get out of here," she muttered, looking over her shoulder as if expecting someone to appear. "Please, don't call the police." That last part told him everything. Alex helped her to her feet, wrapping his old jacket around her shoulders. She winced in pain but didn't resist. "Come on," he said, guiding her toward his pickup truck. "You can barely stand. Let me take you somewhere safe." When they reached his small two-room house, Emma was still asleep, her teddy bear clutched in her tiny hands. Alex gave the woman, whoever she was, a towel, a cup of tea, and his daughter's extra blanket. "Thank you," she said after a long silence. "You didn't have to help me." "I couldn't just leave you there," Alex replied, pulling up a chair. "What happened?" Her eyes flickered to the floor. "Let's just say, I trusted the wrong people, and they took everything from me." He didn't push further. "Not yet." When morning came, sunlight streamed through the curtains, illuminating her face. Even without makeup, she looked familiar. Sharp features, piercing eyes, the kind of presence that commanded attention. It wasn't until he turned on the TV that he realized who she was. Clara Voss, CEO of Voss International. The news anchor's voice filled the room. In shocking developments, Clara Voss, one of the country's youngest CEOs, is missing following allegations of fraud and embezzlement. Sources claim her business partner and fiancé, Matthew Cole, has assumed control of the company. Alex looked at her in disbelief. "You're that Clara Voss?" Her eyes met his, cold, haunted, and tired. "I was," she said quietly. "But now I'm just no one." The room fell silent. Outside, rain began to fall again, gentle this time, almost cleansing. Over the next few days, Clara barely spoke. She helped around the house despite her injured leg, folding laundry, making Emma breakfast, pretending to be an ordinary woman. But Alex could see the storm brewing behind her calm expression. One night, after Emma had gone to bed, Alex found her sitting outside on the porch, staring at the horizon. "You don't belong here," he said gently. "You're not just running from something, are you?" She smiled faintly. "You think I'm some kind of villain?" "I think you're scared," he replied. "And you're hiding from people who don't want the truth out." Clara turned toward him. "You're smarter than you look." Alex chuckled. "I get that a lot." Then, for the first time, she told him everything. How her fiancé, Matthew, had framed her for embezzlement. How he had transferred millions from her company to offshore accounts under her name. How, when she confronted him, he laughed and told her she was finished. "When I tried to go to the police," she said, voice trembling, "he sent people after me. Men who knew where I lived. Who waited outside my office. So I ran. I've been running ever since." Alex listened in silence. Every word was soaked in betrayal and heartbreak. "I built that company from nothing," she said. "I trusted him with everything, my business, my future, even my heart, and he destroyed it all." Alex took a deep breath. "Then maybe it's time you stop running." She looked at him sharply. "And do what?" "I have nothing left." "You're still breathing," he said. "That's a start." Something in his voice, calm, steady, unshakable, made her look at him differently. For years, she had been surrounded by power, money, and people who only cared about winning. But this man, this single father with rough hands and gentle eyes, was teaching her something she had forgotten: humanity. Days turned into weeks. Clara's leg healed slowly. She started helping Emma with homework, teaching her how to make pancakes, and even fixing Alex's broken old laptop. The house, once quiet and lonely, began to feel alive. And though she never said it out loud, Clara started to smile again. But peace never lasts forever. One evening, Alex came home from work to find a black car parked across the street. 2 men inside. Windows tinted. Watching. He didn't need to ask who sent them. That night, Clara didn't sleep. She sat by the window, her mind racing. Matthew had found her. And this time, She wasn't ready to run. She walked into the kitchen where Alex was sitting, sipping coffee. "They're here," she said quietly. "I know. What are we going to do?" Alex set down his cup and looked her in the eye. "We're not going to run this time. We're going to fight." Clara stared at him, stunned. "Fight? How?" "I don't have money. I don't have a company anymore." He smiled faintly. "You don't need those things. You just need the truth." The next morning, she called an old friend, one she hadn't spoken to in months. Daniel, her former CFO. The only one who had warned her about Matthew before everything collapsed. When Daniel answered, his voice was shaky. "Clara? Is it really you? I need your help," she said. "It's time to take back what's mine." Daniel hesitated. "Matthew has everyone under his thumb. The board, the press, even the auditors. He made it look like you disappeared after stealing the money." "I didn't disappear," Clara replied. "I was silenced. But not anymore." Alex watched her as she spoke, her confidence returning, her fire rekindling. The woman who had begged for her life in the rain was gone. In her place stood the CEO who once commanded an empire. But this time, she wasn't alone. That night, Clara stood outside, feeling the cool air brush her face. Alex joined her, holding 2 cups of tea. "You know," she said softly, "I never believed in miracles before I met you." He smiled. "And now I believe that sometimes angels wear construction boots." They laughed quietly, the kind of laughter that comes after tears. But deep inside, Clara knew the real battle hadn't even begun. She had been broken, betrayed, and nearly destroyed. But tomorrow she would rise. And when she did, Matthew Cole would regret underestimating the woman he tried to bury. Morning light broke through the thin curtains, scattering gold across the worn kitchen table. Clara sat there, phone in hand, her coffee untouched. The screen glowed with Daniel's message. "Meet me at the old Voss facility tonight. I have something you'll want to see." She didn't tell Alex immediately. He was outside, fixing the truck's engine with Emma by his side, both laughing as if the world hadn't gone dark for her. It was the kind of laughter that could heal a soul. For a moment, she allowed herself to watch them, the quiet bond between a father and his little girl. Then she whispered to herself, "I can't drag them into this." But when she turned, Alex was already in the doorway, wiping his hands with a rag. "You're planning something," he said, his tone calm but steady. "I can see it in your eyes." Clara sighed. "Daniel has proof. Documents, files, the kind that could expose everything Matthew did. I have to go tonight." "Then you're not going alone," Alex said firmly. Her instinct was to argue, to tell him this wasn't his fight, but she stopped. For the first time in months, she didn't feel entirely alone. By nightfall, they reached the old Voss building, her first empire, now abandoned and half-forgotten. The echo of their footsteps followed them through the dusty halls. When Daniel appeared from the shadows, he looked thinner, older, weighed down by secrets. "Clara," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "you have no idea how good it is to see you alive." She gave him a faint smile. "You said you had something." Daniel opened a worn briefcase and spread the contents on a metal table. Ledgers, USB drives, and photos. "These are internal transfers, coded emails, shell accounts, all linked to Matthew. He used your credentials to move $30 million offshore." Clara's eyes widened. "You kept all this?" "I knew the day would come when you'd fight back," he said softly. But before they could speak further, the sound of tires screeched outside. Headlights flashed through the cracked glass. Alex's instincts kicked in instantly. "We need to go. Now." Daniel looked terrified. "They must have followed me." "Back door," Alex ordered, grabbing Clara's hand. They ran through the narrow corridor, dust swirling around them. The old exit door groaned as they pushed through it, stumbling into the cold night. Behind them, men shouted. Flashlights swept through the windows. Clara's heart pounded. She hadn't felt fear like this since that night she escaped Matthew's penthouse. But now, she wasn't the same broken woman. This time, she had something to fight for. They made it back to the truck, breathing hard. Alex started the engine, but before driving, he turned to Clara. "We can't keep running," he said. "We have the truth now. We just need to make them listen." "And how do we do that?" she asked. "Matthew controls everything, the press, the board, the narrative." Alex looked ahead, eyes narrowing. "Then we go around him." The next day, while Clara hid the documents in a safe place, Alex called in a favor, an old friend from his military days who now worked in private security. Together, they built a plan. Step 1, get the evidence authenticated. Step 2, Leak the files to trusted journalists. Step 3. Force the board of Voss International to reopen the investigation. But to do that, Clara needed to show her face to the world after months of being branded a thief. That night, she stood in front of Alex's cracked bathroom mirror, brushing her hair back. Her reflection stared back at her. Not the powerful CEO she once was, but a survivor. Alex appeared behind her, his voice low. You don't owe anyone an apology for what he did. I owe myself the truth, she said. He nodded. Then tell it. 2 days later, Clara walked into a local TV station under an assumed name. The reporter, a sharp-eyed woman named Lisa, had once covered her company's rise and her supposed fall. When Clara revealed her identity, Lisa almost dropped her pen. You're alive? Very much, Clara said. And I have proof of what really happened. Lisa's hands shook as she scrolled through the files. If this is real, it'll destroy Matthew Cole's entire empire. Good, Clara replied coldly. He destroyed mine first. The interview aired 24 hours later. Across the country, screens flickered with her face. The missing CEO who returned with evidence of betrayal, corruption, and fraud. Clara spoke calmly, her voice steady as she detailed everything. The manipulation, the theft, the threats. By morning, Matthew's name was everywhere, but not the way he wanted. Inside his penthouse office, Matthew Cole watched the broadcast with fury in his eyes. Find her, he barked into his phone. Now! But his empire was crumbling faster than he could control. Board members began resigning. The press flooded his doorstep. Investors pulled out. And Clara? She didn't hide anymore. She went to the police with Daniel and handed over the full dossier. This time, the evidence was undeniable. For the first time in months, she felt the weight lift from her shoulders. Outside the station, Alex waited with Emma, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. When Clara stepped out, exhausted but smiling, Emma ran to her and hugged her tightly. Daddy says you're a hero. Clara knelt down, eyes misty. Oh, sweetie, heroes make mistakes too. But they don't give up. Alex smiled quietly from behind them, pride and warmth in his gaze. That night, after Emma went to bed, Clara and Alex sat on the porch again. The same place where their unlikely story began. You did it, he said softly. You took your life back. Clara shook her head. We did it. I never would have survived without you. He looked at her for a long moment, the kind of look that said everything without words. You don't have to survive anymore, Clara. You can live. For the first time in forever, she felt peace. Not the fleeting kind that comes with revenge, but the deep kind, the kind that comes from finding your way home. As the stars blinked above, Alex reached for her hand. You know, he said with a grin, maybe we should tell this story someday. People might actually listen. Clara laughed, her eyes glistening. Maybe. But let's give it a good ending first. He leaned closer, voice gentle. Then let's make one. The news had spread like wildfire. Every major network ran the same headline. Disgraced executive Matthew Cole under investigation after ex-CEO returns with explosive evidence. For Clara, it should have been a moment of relief, maybe even triumph. But peace never comes easy after years of living in the shadows. 3 days after the broadcast, she noticed a black car parked near Alex's property. Same model. Same tinted windows. Every night. Watching. Alex wanted to call the police, but Clara stopped him. He's cornered. And desperate men do stupid things. She wasn't wrong. Matthew had lost everything in a week. His board seat, his investors, his reputation. But what enraged him most wasn't the scandal. It was the woman he once thought he owned standing tall on national television. Stronger than he'd ever seen her. In his penthouse, surrounded by lawyers who refused to meet his eyes, he poured himself another drink and whispered, She thinks she's won. She has no idea what's coming. Meanwhile, Clara tried to find normal again. Emma's laughter filled the kitchen. Alex hummed as he fixed the old door hinge. Life, for the first time, seemed safe. But safety, like trust, can vanish in a heartbeat. One night, Alex came in from the porch, face tense. That car's back. And this time, the engine's still running. Clara's stomach dropped. He wouldn't. Alex shook his head. He would. Before they could react, headlights cut across the yard, blinding them. A figure stepped out, tall, familiar, and furious. Matthew. He didn't look like the man from the business magazines anymore. His hair was unkempt, his eyes hollow, his suit rumpled. Rage had eaten him alive. You took everything from me, he spat. Clara stood her ground. You took it from yourself. Alex stepped forward, his voice low but lethal. You should leave. Matthew sneered. And you must be the charity project she picked up. How quaint. Last warning, Alex said. But Matthew wasn't here to listen. He lunged forward, his hand gripping Clara's wrist, hard enough to bruise. You think you're some kind of hero? You ruined me. Before Alex could move, Clara looked him straight in the eye. And for the first time, Matthew saw no fear. You ruined yourself, she said coldly. You built everything on lies, and now the truth is burning it down. Alex pulled her free, standing between them. Get off my property before I make you regret stepping here. Matthew glared, but something in Alex's eyes, the kind of quiet, disciplined fire, made him step back. He pointed at Clara one last time. This isn't over. Then he stormed off into the night. The police arrived minutes later, but Matthew was gone. They filed a report, increased patrols around the property, but Clara knew he wouldn't stop until the final piece fell. The next morning, she received a letter hand-delivered. No return address. Just 4 words. Meet me where it began. Alex begged her not to go. He's dangerous, Clara. I know, she said quietly. But if I don't face him now, he'll keep coming. He's not after revenge anymore. He's after control. Then I'm coming with you. She didn't argue this time. They met at the old lake house, the place where Clara and Matthew had once spent weekends in what she'd thought was love. Now it stood abandoned, like the ghost of her past. When she stepped inside, the smell of mold and dust hit her. The furniture was covered in sheets, but the memories, the laughter, the betrayal, still lingered. Matthew stood by the fireplace, holding a small flash drive. You think you destroyed me? He said. You only scratched the surface. What's that? She asked. Proof, he smirked. That you weren't so innocent either. Every deal you signed, every contract you missed, it's all here. I can spin this however I want. Clara exhaled slowly. So that's your plan. You burn me down to save yourself. That's the world, darling, he said with a bitter laugh. The stronger one survives. Alex, standing by the door, spoke up. No, Matthew. The better one survives. Matthew turned toward him, sneering. You think you can take me? You're nothing, just some washed-up soldier playing family. And that was when Clara stepped forward. Calm. Steady. You know what I realized, Matthew? She said. You never understood strength. You thought it was control, money, power, fear. But real strength, it's what you see in the people you tried to destroy. He hesitated, his smirk faltering. You can spin your stories, leak your lies, but I don't need a company or a title anymore to prove who I am, she said. And you can't hurt me, because you've already lost everything that ever mattered. For a moment, silence filled the room, heavy, raw, final. Then Matthew's hand trembled. He threw the flash drive into the fire. If I burn, you burn too? Flames flared, but Clara didn't flinch. She just turned to Alex and said, Let's go. Matthew shouted after them, voice breaking. You think this is over? Clara looked back one last time. It is for me. They left the lake house behind, the glow of the fire fading in the distance. By the time they reached the road, Clara felt a strange calm settle over her. Not triumph, not vengeance, just peace. 2 days later, the police found Matthew's car abandoned. He'd fled the country, taking what little remained of his wealth. Voss International replaced him officially. The world moved on. But Clara didn't celebrate. She didn't need to. She had already won the only battle that mattered, the one against her own fear. Weeks passed. One afternoon, Clara sat on the porch while Emma painted beside her. Alex was repairing the fence again, humming softly. Emma looked up and said, Miss Clara, when I grow up, I want to be brave like you. Clara smiled, brushing a strand of hair from the girl's forehead. You already are, sweetheart. Alex looked over at her, his expression full of quiet admiration. You know, you never did tell me what you'll do next. Clara laughed softly. For once, I don't have a plan. Maybe that's the point. He sat beside her, hands resting on his knees. Well, whatever comes next, you won't face it alone. She turned to him, eyes warm. I know. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Clara looked out at the endless sky, the weight of her past finally gone. In her heart, she whispered a silent truth. Sometimes, the greatest victory isn't revenge. It's freedom. And as the screen fades, Clara's voice could be heard one last time, calm, wise, and strong. If my story touched you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. Because every ending isn't about what we lose, it's about what we find when we start again. Months passed. Winter softened into spring and life began to bloom again. Not just in the garden outside Alex's farmhouse, but in Clara's heart. The chaos, the fear, the anger, all of it had settled into quiet lessons, etched deep within her soul. Every morning, she would wake to the sound of birds, to Emma's giggles, and to Alex humming softly as he brewed coffee. Simple things, yet they felt like miracles. One afternoon, Clara stood by the small field near the house, watching Emma chase butterflies. The sunlight danced across her hair, and for the first time in a long while, Clara smiled without pain behind it. Alex walked up beside her, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You've been quiet today," he said gently. "Just thinking," she replied, "about how far we've come." He handed her the cup, their fingers brushing briefly, a touch that lingered longer than either expected. "You built empires, Clara. But what you've built here, it's something different." She looked at him. "Something real." He nodded. "Something that can't be taken away." They stood in silence for a while, just breathing in the moment. The wind carried the faint scent of wildflowers. Somewhere in the distance, the river hummed softly. "I used to think power was everything," Clara said finally. "That control meant safety. But now I know, the strongest thing I've ever done is let go." Alex smiled, eyes warm and steady. "And that's exactly why you'll never lose yourself again." Clara turned toward him. "You know, for a man who says little, you always seem to say exactly what I need to hear." He chuckled softly. "Guess I've had a good teacher." Then he grew serious. "You don't owe the world anything anymore, Clara. But maybe it still needs to hear you." She tilted her head. "What do you mean? Tell your story. Not as the CEO, not as the victim, but as the woman who survived. You could help people who've been where you were." For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then she smiled, a quiet, knowing smile. "Maybe I will." That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Clara sat on the porch with her laptop. She began to type. Not about revenge or betrayal, but about redemption, love, and second chances. Her voice, once silenced by fear, found its way back to the world. And in that golden hour, surrounded by laughter and peace, Clara finally understood. Freedom wasn't about leaving the past behind. It was about forgiving herself for ever thinking she wasn't strong enough to start again. She looked at the camera one last time and whispered, "If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Because every ending is just a new beginning waiting to be told."